It started with a smell, a sickly sweet stench that seeped through the walls of apartment 213. Neighbors complained, police shrugged. But behind that door was a horror beyond imagination. Human remains in the fridge, Polaroids of mutilated bodies, and a man who calmly confessed to killing 17 young men and boys. His name, Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised. This story is not just disturbing, it's unforgettable. If you're drawn to the darkest corners of true crime, subscribe to our channel now and hit the bell icon. We uncover the stories others fear to tell. Now, let's begin. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. From the outside, he was just another Midwestern kid. But inside, something was unraveling. His childhood was marked by emotional neglect, a broken home, and a growing obsession with death. By age 14, Dahmer was drinking heavily and fantasizing about controlling and dissecting male bodies. His fascination with bones began early. He called them fiddlesticks and collected roadkill to study anatomy. It wasn't just curiosity, it was the beginning of a nightmare. In 1978, just weeks after graduating high school, Dahmer committed his first murder. Stephen Hicks, 18, was hitchhiking to a concert when Dahmer lured him home with the promise of beer. When Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer bludgeoned him with a dumbbell, strangled him, and dismembered the body. He buried the remains in the backyard, later dissolving them in acid. Hicks vanished without a trace, and Dahmer kept going. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 victims, most of them young men of color, many from marginalized communities. He lured them from bars, bus stops, and the streets of Milwaukee. His methods were chillingly methodical. Sedatives in drinks, strangulation, dismemberment. But it didn't stop there. Dahmer preserved body parts, skulls, hearts, even genitalia. He photographed his victims post-mortem, posed them, and stored remains in his apartment. In some cases, he committed acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. He told investigators he wanted to create a shrine of human remains, a twisted monument to control and possession. One of the most haunting moments came in May 1991. Dahmer lured 14-year-old Konarak Synthasamphone to his apartment, drugged him, and assaulted him. But Konarak escaped, naked and bleeding, only to be returned to Dahmer by police, who dismissed the scene as a lover's quarrel. Hours later, Konarak was dead. The system had failed. Again. July 22, 1991. It was supposed to be another night for Dahmer, another victim. But this time, something went wrong. Tracy Edwards, 32, had been lured to Dahmer's apartment with promises of beer and conversation. But once inside, he noticed something was off. The smell, the strange blue barrel, the handcuffs. Dahmer threatened him with a knife, but Edwards kept calm. He waited, and when Dahmer's guard dropped, he ran. Edwards flagged down 2 Milwaukee police officers. He led them back to apartment 213. What they found inside would haunt them forever. Photographs of dismembered bodies, a severed head in the fridge, human hearts in the freezer, a barrel filled with acid and decomposing torsos. It was a house of horrors, and Dahmer confessed. There were no other suspects, no accomplices. Dahmer acted alone. But the twists came in the form of missed chances, moments when the system could have stopped him. In 1988, Dahmer was convicted of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy, Konarek Synthesonphone's brother. He served just 1 year. After his release, he resumed killing. In May 1991, Konarek himself escaped Dahmer's apartment. But when police arrived, they returned the boy to Dahmer, despite neighbors pleading with them. The officers joked about the situation on their radio. Konarek was murdered hours later. Those officers were later fired, but the damage was done. The system had failed the victims again and again. In January 1992, Dahmer stood trial in Milwaukee. He pled guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder. The courtroom was tense. Families of victims sat just feet away from the man who had destroyed their lives. Psychiatrists debated his sanity. Was he mentally ill or simply evil? The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Their verdict? Guilty but sane. Dahmer was sentenced to 15 life terms, a total of 957 years in prison. But justice would be short-lived. On November 28, 1994, just 2 years into his sentence, Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate at Columbia Correctional Institution. He died from severe head trauma. Some saw it as karma, others saw it as closure. But the legacy of Dahmer's crimes lingers. His victims were mostly young men of color, many from LGBTQ+ communities. Their stories were overshadowed by the spectacle of Dahmer himself. Families fought for recognition, for dignity, for remembrance. The case sparked national conversations about police negligence, racism, and the treatment of marginalized communities. It exposed the cracks in the system and the cost of ignoring them. Jeffrey Dahmer is gone, but the echoes of his crimes still reverberate. In the silence of forgotten neighborhoods, in the faces of families still grieving, in the questions that remain unanswered. How many chances did we miss? How many lives could have been saved? And what happens when evil hides in plain sight? If this story gripped you, subscribe to our channel now. We dive deep into the darkest corners of true crime, where the truth is stranger than fiction. And justice is never simple.